So collage animations are not going anywhere. Content creators like Ali Abdal and Alex Hormozy and media companies like Vox and TED still use the collage animation style in their content and videos, and there's good reason for it. Now, what if I told you that there are some rare reference websites and some powerful yet easy to use animation techniques that anyone can learn and use and make their videos stand out as well? Today, I'm going to show them to you, and I'll also be giving out the After Effects project file and all the assets that I'll be using in this video for free. You can grab it right now from the link in the description below. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I made this YouTube short from start to finish. Along the way, we'll dive into how the collage style actually works when using it to create short form content, like gathering free and high quality assets, building an engaging hook, planning collage style transitions, and how to make it look really good quickly and easily, while also building a reusable asset library so you can save time when creating your future content. So now, without further delay, let's enter the board. So reference and research is one of the most important steps and processes when it comes to creating collage style animated videos, because the reference and research that we do directly influences the final result that we have. And right now there's so much of references out there for collage style animation videos, so it's important to know where you want to look for the inspiration that you need, what are the best places for that, and to make it more relevant to what's really working and getting engagement right now. We're going to dive into all of that, and I'll talk you through a little bit about my thinking process when I start a collage style content piece like this. So one of the first things that I do is go to Pinterest. And here's my Pinterest profile. And right here on the top left corner, you'll see these groups already have a bunch of collage references. For instance, the collage workshop group here. For this video, let's just explore this folder for now. A folder I started curating for an in-person live collage workshop that I'm doing here in Berlin, and I wanted to create a poster for that, and these were the kind of reference images that I curated for it. One of the first things that I do is to see the composition, and what I do then is basically just expand the image that I find interesting and take a screenshot of this image, and then I just drop it into this very convenient mood board software called PureRef, and I will link that in the description below. That's basically like an infinite canvas where you can drop screenshots and images and use it as a mood board for your projects. But Pinterest is not the only place I get my inspiration from. The second most visited website for me to gather inspiration is Behance. You can go into the search bar and just type collage and find out what artists have created. It's such a rich website, and I then just run it through the process once more. So I, for instance, would open an artist, and then I would go in and grab one of the images that I feel is interesting, where I see that there are some interesting visual elements used in an interesting way. For instance, the way shapes have been used and the way it's been juxtaposed with real imagery, and then the monochrome effect made on these imagery and how that affects with color. So I'm just constantly grabbing ideas right now, visual ideas and visual inspiration. And then again, I would do the same thing. I would just take a screenshot of this and then drop it into PureRef. Now, apart from Pinterest and Behance, there's one more website that I swear by, and it's one of the best reference websites when it comes to collage style videos, and that website is rare, and it's called iCandy. Although I feel like this website is now becoming more and more popular, but it's still quite rare when you think about it. And iCandy is just this really cool website where these guys curate trending and extremely engaging visual techniques, and they put them into categories of different kinds of film styles and design styles. And if you just scroll down, you're going to see that these videos have been curated from many popular advertisements, music videos, animations. By just looking at this, you also kind of get into the pulse of what is really working right now currently on social media, on the internet. And what's really cool for collage style videos, that they have a great collage category on their website. You can also go into the search bar and just type collage, where you will find all the different collage projects. The very first one, which says technique:collage, is the main collage page, where is like all the projects are curated, and these are fresh and unique projects that have happened in the collage style. I can already see a project which inspired my current video that we are discussing, which is this one. So I'm just gonna go and take a quick screenshot and then jump into After Effects. So here we are in After Effects, and I'll just drop the image that we got from eye candy. I would just pin it up on the top, and I'll show you how it gave me inspiration for my ideas. So right at the start, if you look at the way I masked and cut this video out, this hand movement of course was rehearsed. Like I knew that I'm going to start with my hands covered on my face and then just pull out, knowing that later I'm going to mask that. So if you just look at the reference image here and see the video below, it's almost similar. And this is very important. What's really cool about finding really good reference is not just taking it and using it one-to-one. It's also how can I make it better? How can I make it my own? So for instance, in the reference image, it's basically just this video of a woman walking, and it's just a cutout with like a paper grungy texture background. But here I not only made a cutout of myself, but I also added these yellow and blue merged kind of background colors to make it even more handmade, like it's cut out of 2 different color papers, and then I put it on this like graph paper background with more grungy effects and so on. So that's a quick way of showing you how research and reference influences our projects, and where we research and find our inspiration is super important because it directly influences the final result. So asset creation and planning is a stage that you're not only investing time in for just one project. You don't do it in every single project. You do it right at the beginning. You take some time off in your day and just sit and collect all the references and all the assets that you want to use in your projects that you find interesting. And having a nice mood board like this is the best starting point for that. I basically start with this mood board where I have like a bunch of images, and I go into these images and I try to look for assets that have been used in this project that I want to use too. For instance, just taking this image for example, you have this element of torn paper edges right here. You also have this grungy texture, ink splatter. So I can already like make a list of all the different kinds of elements that people use in collage animation. And you can also see like how these assets have been reused and in a different way in other projects as well. Just take a look at this, how this kind of grainy, grungy texture has been used here as well, and also here, used here in this area, as you can see. That's how I basically study my references that I really like and I want my videos to be like, and then make a list of the elements used in those videos. And it's super simple to do. And once you have the list, I'm going to show you what I do next. So once I have that list, I go to a website called freepik.com. Many people know about it, but I especially like Freepik because you don't need to pay to download quite a lot of free non-copyright assets and images. Of course, after a point, there is a limit, a daily limit that you can bypass obviously by taking one of their pro plans, which I highly recommend. And they have like such an amazing library of videos, photos, images, design assets, even AI generated images. But I'm going to use the free version right now to give you the example of the process that I take. So once I have the list of assets and elements that I found in my mood board that I want to also download, I will just go into the search bar and let's take one for example. Let's put down a grunge paper texture, right? I just search that on Freepik and immediately you're gonna find so many different kinds of grunge paper textures. And even if you just look at this image carefully and go back to your mood board right here, you can even like see sometimes that the assets are so similar. Of course, if you use a free version, you should mention that the image was taken from Freepik, and that's what I always do in my projects. And they have this really nice filter system where you can just go onto the top left side in the panel here and click free. It curates all the textures that you just know you can download right away. So that was a little about asset planning and asset curation. But what about asset creation? And why do we even want to create assets when we can download free stuff like this online? Well, sometimes in your vision for your video, some assets just don't fit what you want. So I'll give you a great example of that in this video that we are discussing today. So here, as you can see, there is this hand holding a phone. And I tried to look for exactly this view and perspective on all these free asset websites. I just couldn't find the one that fit my vision. Much better in that case is to just build your own. And that's exactly what I did here. I basically just held up my own phone in the angle and perspective that I wanted it in. I used good lighting to light up the shot, and then I simply used a camera to take a photo of that and dropped it directly into After Effects. And once I have the image in After Effects, I basically just made a mask around the image in the shape that I wanted. I didn't have to be perfect. And then I take the shape layer, draw a cutout effect around it. You already now have the asset you need, but you can do a bunch of other things on top of that, like throwing on a curves effect to make the lighting match a little bit more with the overall video. You can put a half tone or grayscale effect on it, and you can also, of course, like what I did in this project, throw a paper crumple texture, and I could animate it in any way I want, and you have that freedom when the asset is yours only. And most times when you're downloading an asset from the internet, you can't choose how big that photo is, you can't choose which lighting was used, you can't choose the angle or the perspective. So that's one example of how I create my assets. So when it comes to transitions, I had basically just 3 big transitions I used in this video. I would say one would be right here, this paper reveal transition, where I showed old animator's light table that I transformed into a Wacom Cintiq, which was super fun to make, and it was completely done in After Effects and using paper textures and masking basically. The second one that I did was right afterwards, right here, that this paper tear effect done completely in After Effects and using assets online. And then the other big one that I used was right at the end. This video comes in and then it kind of transforms into this crumpled paper and makes a ball and then just kind of disappears. So the first transition that I'm about to break down is at this part of the video, which is basically a paper crumple reveal of an old animation light table that is transformed into a new Wacom Cintiq. So I'm going to open up this composition and let's take a look inside. So here we have the animation, and the main components are the layer in the bottom, which is the animation light table, and the layer on top, which is the Cintiq, but also this middle kind of paper texture that I have built using this paper texture. So I've got a grainy gradient blue texture on this image, and I also have this kind of scientific paper texture that I combined to create this style. And when I look into the shape that I used, you're gonna see that it's basically just a shape that has been animated using path properties. And I also used the keyframes as hold keyframes, so it gives me that kind of handmade motion. That's how paper actually behaves when you apply pressure on it. And the way I set this up is that I start very small and then go a few frames ahead and then move it up again. And when I move it up, and this is important, I also move the part of the shape layer below as well, so that it looks like it's changing. Now, the way I achieved this transformation between the image at the top and the image at the bottom is simply by also masking the image at the bottom and animating it along with this paper reveal. So what I basically did was I didn't have to touch this layer on the top, it just stayed. But on top of the layer, I animated this page reveal effect that goes on top of it. However, while I was animating this shape layer opening up on top, I was also revealing the layer in the bottom simultaneously. And what I've done here is, if I open this layer up, you're gonna see a same mask happening. So it's invisible here. If you can just look at this yellow mask line, it's totally collapsed. And I'm gonna just solo this layer for you guys so you can see exactly what's happening here. As we move forward, I reveal this in the bottom. It's just an optical illusion, right? And that's a very big part of digital animation. There are many things that you can do to augment effects, and it all depends on how good you know your tools, how good you know the software, and there are no limits to the way these tools can be used to create all kinds of different results. The solution is so simple: no effects, no plugins, simply native masking tools that you get when you have After Effects. And masking tools are present in almost every animation software today. So you can potentially even create this effect just with a free animation software out there. The second transition is basically just this very simple tear effect. So I had the entire monitor in a separate composition. So it's this purple one that you can see. Then I just duplicated it and made a mask around it to make it cut in half, and had another part which was also cut in half, and simply used position properties like you can see here to just tear it away. I also added this kind of torn paper edges to the composition, I made 2 more duplicates of the composition. So these torn edges is actually just this composition but colored in completely white, so you can't see it because I've added a fill effect here. If I remove the fill effect here on the side, you're gonna see that it's actually just the same composition but with torn kind of cutout effect. And I achieved this rough paper tear out texture by applying the roughen edges effect from the After Effects effects library, and all I had to do was just offset the composition that I've applied these effects to so it looks like it's overlapping each other. So a very simple solution, again, completely created inside After Effects using its native tools to come up with this transition. So here is the last transition that I wanted to show you guys, which is this one. The moment the video comes in, you're gonna see that the video crumples up into a piece of paper and then the paper just bounces off and leaves the screen. And believe it or not, this entire transition was also done completely in After Effects, and it's much easier than it looks, and let me break it down for you guys. So the way I achieved this last transition was, first I acquired a video of a paper crumpling. So if I just solo this layer, you're gonna see this crumple paper video that I'm gonna add in the asset library that you can download from the description below, of course. So I added it on top of the video that I wanted to animate, and then I used the darker color blending mode to make it blend seamlessly with the video underneath. And then I also used a time remap so that I can time the paper crumple video the way I want, so that it merges with the motion of the video underneath, so that it kind of has a seamless transition with the black color. So after I did that, I used a mesh warp effect. It adds this mesh on top of whatever you added this effect to, and it creates this grid. And if you go into the grid, you can actually select every single intersection and point on this grid individually and move it. And the moment you move it, it distorts that point on the image. So as you can see, if I move this down or up, it distorts the image. And that's what essentially happens when we crumple a piece of paper. The parts inside the paper starts distorting till it becomes a crumpled ball. And here, if I zoom in, you'll be able to see that the video underneath, I'm actually warping the image frame by frame along with the speed of the paper crumpling as well, so that I go with the crumple of the paper. So it's also important to note here that to make it look realistic, at one point when it's just about to turn into a ball, you're going to have to make sure that the video you're warping is inside the outer piece of paper, so that it looks like it's inside that piece of paper and it's being crumpled inwards. And then right after that, if the speed is fast enough, you're going to be getting a seamless transition. So if I play it back, you'll be able to see that it just seamlessly crumples into a ball, and then I added just a fun position animation to the ball so that it looks like it just crumples inwards and then bounces up and then leaves the screen. So that's essentially how I created this last transition. So try these transitions yourself. If you need any more clarifications on each of these transitions, please comment below and ask me your questions. And I would love to see you guys actually recreate some of these transitions and see for yourself what the results look like. Now, this topic of reusable asset library, it's such an important part of making short videos, YouTube shorts or Instagram reels. Having an asset library, especially when you're making videos in a specific style like a collage style video and has such potential for growth, having an asset library as an animator and video maker, and even if you're not a video maker or animator yourself, your animators who you've hired should also be using an asset library, because it saves so much time, and time is one of the most important factors when it comes to content creation, because the more you create, the more you post, the more chances you have to grow. So having an asset library in the process makes things so much more efficient, and it starts with having a very good folder structure right here inside After Effects. I have basically these top 5 folders. One is called assets, second is called comps, there's footage, project files, and sounds. Assets is the folder where I basically have all the assets that I've collected over many projects. So my suggestion is always have a folder on your desktop where you can collate and curate all these assets in one places. Make subfolders. Have a folder called just paper textures, have a folder called grunge textures, have a folder called collage transition files, and so on. And that really helps in the long run to have that asset folder all the time. And later, either you're starting a new project or you're already inside an existing project like I am right now, you can always easily go and double tap on the project panel on the left side, and that opens up the import menu. But you can also go into After Effects, File, and then just go down into import and then click file, and that does the same thing, opens up the import menu. And then you can easily just navigate to the place where you have your asset library folder where you've curated your assets. Then you just click on open and import that. And once you import it, the folder directly with all the assets gets imported right here into your project panel, which makes it so efficient for you to just access all the assets that you've collected while you're working inside After Effects. So having a reusable asset library is so crucial when it comes to animating short form content. And I recommend any creator who's making collage style videos like this to have an asset library of their own. So that's it for this video. I really hope you learned something and found value. And if you did, consider subscribing to the channel. It goes a long way in supporting me in making more such videos in the future. And also share this with someone you may feel also needs to watch this. But as a creative person in today's creative landscape, skills aren't enough. It's also important to have a strong creative mindset. And that is why I made this video on procrastination. Check it out and find out what options do creators have when it comes to feeling creatively blocked or procrastinating when they really want to create. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.